to be here in Iowa, especially in Des Moines, and specifically here at Drake University. Denny and I are very thankful and appreciative of the hospitality that has been extended to us, and so we feel very, very welcome. Now, as someone who grew up on the West Coast and has worked many, many years on the East Coast, I always genuinely enjoy when I get to come to the Midwest. It's one of the friendliest places that I know, and this is good because friendship is one of the things that we are going to be talking about today. Now, this week is a good week to celebrate what the U.S. Center for Citizen Diplomacy and the Japan Center stand for. And that's because this is a week in which we are reminded that diplomacy, collaboration, and the global community must be strong in the face of those who would destroy those kinds of values. Now, as all of us know, 11 years ago, tomorrow, the United States was victimized by hatred and zealotry on a catastrophic level with the 9/11 attacks in New York City, Washington, D.C., and in the plains of Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And as many of you might know, I was the Secretary of Transportation on that tragic day and the months afterwards. I came to my second presidential cabinet position to improve the national transportation system and to serve President George W. Bush as one of his cabinet officers after doing the same for President Clinton as his Secretary of Commerce in the previous administration. Instead, after 9 months, I was confronted with death and destruction in the ensuing years of war, with all the headaches and the waste that war brings, regardless of the nobility of its purpose. It is always important to remember these events, and especially the innocent victims of that day. But it is especially important for us here today to remember because of what we are doing here. 11 years ago, a group of men launched an attack of evil and hatred, masquerading as religion and cultural preservation. But they only brought heresy and hypocrisy with them that day, as well as darkness. Excuse me, and that's why today is important. Today we seek to provide a light that dispels the darkness of hate and ignorance. Today is a day of light here in Des Moines, and that may be the greatest way that we can remember those events of 11 years ago. Providing the light of collaboration and partnership is what the Japan Foundation Center for Global Partnership has been doing for over 20 years. It has provided funds not only for the many efforts throughout the United States and Japan, and so we are all grateful for their support in making the J-Center possible and all of the other important work that they do. it is worth remembering the mission of the Center for Global Partnership, or CGP, and how it is in harmony with the missions of the U.S. Center for Citizen Democracy, the J-Center, and that of Drake University. The CGB's mission is, and I quote, to promote collaboration between Japan and the United States with the goal of fulfilling shared global responsibilities and contributing to improvements in the world's welfare, to enhance dialogue and interchange between Japanese and U.S. citizens on a wide range of issues, thereby improving bilateral relationships, end of quote. Now let's hear the first sentence of the mission of the U.S. Center for Citizen Diplomacy, and I quote, "The U.S. Center for Citizen Diplomacy promotes opportunities for all Americans to be citizen diplomats and affirms the indispensable value of citizen involvement in international relations," end of quote. And in the overview of the J-Center, in explaining the purpose of the grant given by the USCCD, it says that the J-Center will increase access to Japanese society and culture in areas of the United States where such access has historically been limited. But it will work to foster relationships between Japan and the 12 states in the American Midwest. And finally, let me remind everyone that our host, Drake University, says Drake's mission is to provide an exceptional learning environment that provides for, among other things, quote, responsible global citizenship, unquote. Now, each of you know some or even all of these mission statements. However, it is worthwhile to remind ourselves that there is a harmony of purpose as we implement the mission of educating people about Japan and the United States and the relationship between these two great countries. And as we fulfill this mission, it is worth reminding ourselves that to do this job well, we must do three things well. First, we must know ourselves. Secondly, we must be open to learning about others. And thirdly, we must take what we have learned from these two first challenges and make a new reality. Now, this seems like a simple equation, but in simplicity, there is much more work and even considerable difficulty. First, we must know ourselves. Today in America, especially during this political season, we seem to be focused on what divides us rather than on what unites us. And in politics, that division seems reflected in how my former institution, the United States Congress, seems to be operating. Lately, the goal in Congress seems not to work together, but rather to focus on making sure that the other guy doesn't win. Now, that is not the way to govern effectively. We have much in America that unites us, much that we have in common. It is not only in our political system but in our culture, our communities, and in what is best for us. Our optimism about the future, our sense we have the chance to be the best that we can, a confidence that despite all of our faults, we can succeed with hard work, for these are values we see reflected in American success. It is how a son of an African immigrant can become president, and how another man can be the nominee for president whose religious faith, in which only a century ago had its practitioners hunted down and killed a few hundred miles from where we stand. The stories of Barack Obama and Mitt Romney are American stories, and so is my story. Like theirs, it is marked by the tragedy of prejudice. But like theirs, it is one in which our national values triumphed. And therefore I stand here before you today as a young boy unjustly imprisoned in an internment camp with my family by our own country for the duration of World War II, simply because of the accident of our birth. But later, a U.S. Army veteran, a democratically elected mayor of San Jose, California, a U.S. representative, and selected twice by presidents of two different political parties to be a Secretary of Commerce and then a Secretary of Transportation. Another American story. The second equation I give you is how we must be open to learning about others. And by that I mean we must truly stop teaching about America and begin learning about Japan. We must be open to not only learning, but experiencing. If we can do that, we have much to learn from Japanese culture that will not only benefit us as citizens, but as individuals. I spoke earlier of harmony of purpose and seeking that which unites us. And we can learn much about harmony of purpose from Japanese culture. We can learn about the benefits of keeping our balance and recognizing the value inherent in that. We can learn the inherent value of family, of respecting the wisdom and experience of our elders, and the need to care and honor them. Now think for a moment. Keeping our balance, family values, respecting our elders, loyalty. Don't those sound like the values that we call Midwestern culture? Do you ever stand on an Iowa cornfield and listen to the silence? It speaks to you. And in Japan, silence is a form of communication. The Japanese believe that there is much that is communicated by silence in what we say and how we say it. Even in Japanese art, space is often said to portray silence in nature, like that Iowa cornfield. Now, to foster relations among Americans and Japanese, we will have to not only open our minds, but we will have to quiet our minds and be thoughtful in our learning. If we can accomplish that, we will accomplish the first two parts of the equation: convey true American values and genuinely learn Japanese cultural norms. In accompanying this task, we will have the opportunity to create for both nations a new reality. Today, both of our nations have recently suffered severe blows. America is coming to the end of 2 wars and a Great Recession. Nationally, we seem unsteady, and our recent travails have us off balance and thinking that our optimism is misplaced, that our best days may be behind us. Japan has suffered economically for the last 2 decades, and then a huge trauma with the great East Japan earthquake. It shook the nation to the core, economically and emotionally. Prior to these events, our 2 nations also seemed to lose the sense of the priority of the strong relationship between America and Japan. And in the face of the emergence of China and India, the historic relationship of the U.S. and Japan seemed to recede and at times to be taken for granted. We cannot let that happen. To celebrate the strong relationship between these 2 economic and democratic partners does not have to be at the expense of other relationships, but not to keep it strong, not to treasure it and nurture it would be a cultural and strategic mistake. And in fostering this relationship and learning from each other, we will create that third way for both of our nations and both of our peoples. I can promise you, each can learn from the other. We can teach about purpose, about optimism and vision, and we can gain new insights into balance, harmony, and new aspects of community and purpose. It will be a rich journey. It is one, frankly, that I have taken in my own life as an American of Japanese ancestry, and it has served me well. I look forward to continuing it with you, learning and teaching. And I look forward to coming back to Iowa and see what the J-Center has accomplished here in the Midwest. I want to continue our success in our collective efforts. And I want to congratulate all of you in undertaking this mission. It is going to be advancing your harmony of purpose and your commitment to citizenship. May God bless each and every one of you, and may God continue to bless the United States of America and Japan. Thank you very much.